All right, welcome back, people. Welcome back. Earlier today, I was on Twitter and we're following these different uh, pages and all, and it's a lot of Christian pages and all. And I be going at them, but they never respond. They never respond because I know these Christian pages are AGENTSs, so they have an agenda, and their agenda is to, spread the prophecy of JC. But within that book, there are contradictions that exist within that New Testament or the Flu Testament. Because it gets you sick in the head, shot in the high spiral. But there's things that are written in the Flu Testament that just are flat out contradictions of the old. So on this site, dude posted or female woman, whoever it is, they posted. I think it's the Book of Revelations. I think that's what they are on the Twitter. Posted Galatians, I believe 3:2. Let me get to it, because I started with Amos 3:2 just to get the scripture. Okay. Amos 3:2 states, "You have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities." This verse establishes the principle that privilege entails responsibility, meaning Yasharal's unique covenant relationship with Hawah brought greater accountability for their sins than other nations. Divine choice. Hawah explicitly chose Yasharal from among all earthly families, signifying a special, intimate covenant love rather than more or mere omniscient awareness. Consequence. Because of their exclusive relationship, Yasharal's disobedience was viewed as a betrayal of trust, warranting severe divine punishment and corrective discipline. Curses, y'all. Theological principle. This verse underscores that those who receive the most revelation and favor are held to the higher standard, with judgment beginning at Hawah's own household. That's a good breakdown. That's a very good breakdown. That's shout out to the AI, chat, whatever this is. So I'm gonna ask a question: doesn't Galatians 3:28 contradict the above statement? No, Galatians 3:28 does not contradict Amos 3:2. Rather, they address different aspects of, I'm gonna use their word, little g, God, relationship with humanity, covenantal responsibility versus spiritual equality, distinct contexts and purposes. Amos 3:2 focuses on national Yasharal unique historical covenant. It establishes that because Hawah chose Yasharal exclusively among all nations to be his people, they held a position of privilege that incurred a higher standard of accountability. Got it. Their specific knowledge of Hawah's law meant their disobedience was a direct betrayal, warranting stricter judgment. This verse details with collective responsibility and the consequences of breaking a specific national covenant. So that should go to Exodus, because in the book of Exodus, Hawah specifically says Israel is the firstborn. Your parents above love us. What if we don't listen? Belt the ass. That's what it is. Y'all want to be stiff-necked, hard-headed? Keep on. Galatians 3:28 addresses individual standing in salvation. The apostle Paul, Hawah, This declares that in the new covenant established through JC, traditional barriers dividing humanity, Jew, Gentile, slave, free, male, female, are removed regarding access to their God. Little g. All believers share equal value and status as children of their God. Little g. Justified by faith alone rather than ethnic lineage or adherence to the Mosaic law. This verse deals with spiritual unity and the basis of redemption. Theological harmony. The two passages complement each other within the broader biblical narrative. Progression of revelation. Amos speaks of the old covenant era where excuse me, where Yasharal was the sole custodian of Hawah's revelation, necessitating strict accountability. Galatians speaks to the fulfillment of that covenant through JC, where the blessings once exclusive to Yasharal are extended to all nations on equal terms. Privilege and equality. Amos highlights the privilege brings responsibility. Yasharal was judged severely because they knew better, not was judged, are judged. My people was going through it. I'm just a suffering servant, just trying to teach. Galatians highlights that grace brings equality. No group has superior access to salvation anymore. Consistent principle. Both versions or verses ultimately affirm. I'm gonna use a little g. Justice. In Amos, Hawah is just in punishing the nation that knowingly rebelled despite their special status. In Galatians, little g God is just in treating all sinners equally, offering salvation to all faith through favoritism. Or without favoritism. Hold on. What do you mean without favoritism? You gotta be a Christian to get JC's favor. So that is a form of favoritism. Rather than a contradiction, these verses illustrate the transition from a specific national covenant with inherent responsibilities to a universal covenant offering equal standing to all who believe. Now, this is where I come in and say, from a Tanakh Hebrew perspective, without Christian or Jewish interpretation and theology, wouldn't Galatians 3:28 be a contradiction? Now, you see, I'm specific with what I'm asking, because if you ask the chat GPTs and the AIs and all this stuff, if you ask broad questions about biblical interests or subjects, specifically Old Testament, Torah, Tanakh, the apocryphal books, the pseudepigraphic books, they're going to give you the automatic Christian, Jewish interpretation theology so that they can lend credibility to their idols, give credibility to their interpretations, not what is written in the Old Testament, Torah, Tanakh. Let's see what happens when we filter out the bullshit and just keep it Hebrew. From a strict Tanakh Hebrew Bible perspective, excluding Christian theology or later rabbinic interpretation, Galatians 3:28 would indeed appear to contradict Amos 3:2 because they operate on fundamentally different and mutually exclusive covenantal frameworks regarding the status of nations. The contradiction of exclusive election. Amos 3:2 establishes the core principle of exclusive national election. The Hebrew word yada, known, implies an intimate covenantal choice restricted solely to the families of Yasharal. Particularism. The text explicitly states Hawah chose Yasharal only. You only have I known out of all the families on the earth. This creates a permanent ontological distinction between Yasharal and the nations. I'm not going to use the word. It's being used a lot these days. Read it for yourself. But I don't even know if I don't know. I got to look into that word, see if that's a Hebrew word or Yiddish word. It could be Hebrew. Conditional privilege. No. Conditional privilege. In the Tanakh, this unique status is the basis for judgment. Yasharal is punished because they are the only ones in a specific covenant relationship. The verse presupposes that other nations are not known in this way and thus are not subject to the same covenantal laws or punishment. Irrevocable distinction. See? Irrevocable distinction. Irrevocable distinction. Irrevocable means it cannot be taken back. That means forever. Malachi 3:6? Mosai doesn't change, so the sons of Jacob are not consumed. Well, the sons of Yaakov are not consumed. Let me finish this off. Throughout the Tanakh, example, Leviticus 20:26, Deuteronomy 7:6. This separation is presented as an eternal decree. There is no mechanism within the Hebrew Bible for a Gentile to become spiritually equal to an Israelite in terms of covenantal standing. They remain distinct categories. Distinct categories. Let's read this again. There is no mechanism within the Hebrew Bible for a Gentile to become spiritually equal to an Israelite in terms of covenantal standing. They remain distinct categories. This is a very good breakdown. Can't be mad at the chat, GPT. The incompatibility of universal equality. Galatians 3:28. There is neither Jew nor Greek. Proposes a universal spiritual equality that dissolves the very distinction Amos 3:2 affirms. Erasure of covenantal boundaries. By stating there is neither Jew nor Greek, the verse negates the exclusive election described in Amos. If there is no distinction between Jew and Gentile, then the premise of Amos 3:2 that Hawah relates to Yasharal uniquely and differently than the other nations becomes null. Foreign theological concept. The idea that all believers form a single entity where ethnic, covenantal identity, Jew versus Greek, is irrelevant to one's standing before God or Hawah is alien to the Tanakh. The Hebrew Bible maintains a strict hierarchy. Yasharal is the kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Exodus 19:6. While other nations are outside the specific holiness. Contradictory logic. If Galatians 3:28 were true within a Tanakh-only framework, Amos 3:2 would be false. Hawah could not punish Israel specifically for being the only ones he knew if, in reality, he makes no distinction between them and the nations. Conversely, if Amos 3:2 is true, as the Tanakh asserts, then a state of neither Jew nor Greek is impossible because the distinction is divinely ordained and permanent. Let's read this again. Conversely, if Amos 3:2 is true, as the Tanakh asserts, then a state of neither Jew nor Greek is impossible because the distinction is divinely ordained and permanent. Conclusion. Without the lens of Christian theology, which posits a new covenant superseding the old, or Jewish interpretation, which often sees such verses as applying only to specific spiritual contexts without nullifying ethnic covenant. The two statements are logically incompatible. Amos 3:2 affirms divine particularism. Yasharal is uniquely chosen and distinct, while Galatians 3:28 affirms divine universalism. Distinctions are erased. From a stand-alone to not perspective, the latter contradicts the foundational doctrine of the former. So, for you New Testament thumpers and you Christians and your JC people and people who love Paul and try to rationalize and reason what Paul wrote and what he was saying and how that applies to JC, and you try to interpret what JC was saying, but JC, first of all, JC ain't had no scribes. So I just decided to look it up because now, how people supposedly hundreds of years after JC was alive, how they know what he was writing or what he was saying? He ain't writing that. I ain't gotta read all this because it don't make sense once you really start thinking about it. So if he didn't have any, you got 12 disciples and none of them niggas wrote nothing down. And Matthew, Mark, Paul, John, and whoever they came after, and they got everything that he was saying in them red words. Man, come on, man.